The first time I walked into the apartment, the silence hit me before anything else did. Not a creak of the floorboards, not the faint hum of a refrigerator, nothing. It was the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes your skin crawl. The call had come in around 8:14 a.m. A woman found dead in her bathtub. The neighbor claimed she hadn't seen her since the previous evening, but the smell of disinfectant and the pristine shine of the bathroom suggested she had been there more recently than anyone realized. I stepped inside, ducking under the police tape, and immediately noticed the bathroom. It was immaculate, more immaculate than any lived-in home should be. The tiles gleamed like polished glass, the faucets shone as though they'd been rubbed with steel wool, and the bathtub itself reflected the ceiling lights like a mirror. But something was off. No visible wounds. No sign of struggle. No overturned bottles, no hair on the floor, nothing that suggested she had fought for her life. Just the woman, face pale and serene, floating in the water as though she had decided to sleep one last time. Her name was Vanessa Clark, 32, marketing executive, known for her obsessive cleanliness and routine. She lived alone, and according to neighbors, she had always taken pride in keeping her apartment spotless. But this tub, was too clean. Even for her. The water had been drained, the surfaces polished. Whoever had been here had gone out of their way to erase any trace of what had happened. I crouched down, examining the edges of the tub. The caulk was freshly scrubbed, the drain gleaming. But there were subtle clues the eye could miss if you weren't careful. Tiny scratches around the drain, faint scuff marks on the floor beneath the tub, and, oddly, a small ring of soap scum that had been partially wiped away. Someone had been meticulous, but not perfect. I asked for the scene photos the forensics team had taken. High-resolution shots revealed something. The naked eye might miss faint streaks along the bathtub wall, inconsistent with normal cleaning patterns. They looked like swipes, fast, hurried swipes, almost as if someone had been trying to cover their tracks before leaving. The coroner's preliminary report didn't help. No blunt force trauma, no knife marks, no signs of poisoning in the initial scan. But her eyes were wide open, the pupils dilated in a way that suggested fear. And her fingernails, tiny flecks of what looked like residue under them. Not dirt, not hair, but something synthetic. Something deliberate. I moved on to interviews. The neighbors were the usual, polite, slightly shaken, offering the same story. Vanessa was quiet, kept to herself, loved her routines. No enemies. No complaints. But one neighbor hesitated. A young man in the apartment below whispered, I heard something last night. Around midnight. Like, water running. But she always takes baths late, so I didn't think. His voice trailed off, eyes darting toward the apartment as if he feared even saying it aloud. I requested security footage from the building. The cameras didn't cover inside apartments, of course, but the hallways were revealing. Around 11:57 p.m., a figure approached Vanessa's door. The footage was grainy, but the outline was unmistakable. A woman, short hair tied back, dressed in dark clothing. She knocked, waited, then slipped inside without force. The timestamp matched perfectly with the pattern of scrubbing observed in the tub. I ran a background check. The visitor's name was Laura Grant, a friend of Vanessa's, according to social media. But the friend list was sparse. Only a few photos together, nothing recent. And the building registry said no one by that name lived there. She had no legitimate reason to be there. Then came the unusual part, Vanessa's cleaning products. Every bottle was lined up neatly in the bathroom cabinet, and all the seals were intact. No chemical spills, no residues. But the coroner's preliminary toxicology hinted at traces of a rare sedative, something fast-acting and nearly undetectable without a full screen. I stepped back, absorbing the room. Every detail screamed control. Someone had entered, incapacitated Vanessa, staged the scene, and polished every surface to perfection. The question wasn't just who did it, it was why. Why leave the scene so immaculate? Why go through such lengths to erase a life? I pulled out my notepad, listing the anomalies. Faint streaks on the bathtub wall. Residue under the fingernails. Minute scratches around the drain. The sedative traces in preliminary toxicology. The mysterious visitor on the security footage. The picture forming in my mind wasn't of an accident or natural death. This was deliberate, carefully planned, executed with precision. And yet, something nagged at me, a detail so small it could be dismissed by anyone not paying attention. The pattern of scrubbing, the soap residue, the order of the bottles. It hinted at a signature, a ritual almost. Whoever did this wasn't just hiding evidence. They wanted the scene to tell a story. I left the apartment that morning with a sense of unease. Vanessa Clark hadn't just died. She had been erased, polished, sanitized. And in that meticulous perfection, a killer had left a message only someone like me could read. Outside, the city hummed with its usual noise, oblivious to the silent crime that had occurred behind those apartment doors. And I knew, before I even began the deep dive into forensic analysis, that uncovering this story would reveal far more than just a death in a bathtub. Because sometimes the cleanest surfaces hide the darkest secrets. The moment I returned to Vanessa Clark's apartment, the smell of disinfectant had faded, replaced by the faint metallic scent of investigation, gloves, evidence bags, and the lingering chill of polished tiles. I had spent hours reviewing the security footage, analyzing the residue under her fingernails, and cross-referencing the cleaning patterns with toxicology. Everything pointed to a single conclusion: this wasn't an accident. The first breakthrough came when the lab results arrived. The sedative found in Vanessa's bloodstream was rare, a designer compound used in veterinary medicine, nearly undetectable unless specifically screened for. That explained the lack of visible trauma. Vanessa hadn't resisted because she never had the chance. She had been incapacitated long enough for someone to stage the scene. I focused on the subtle clues in the bathroom itself. The streaks on the tub weren't random. They followed a pattern consistent with obsessive cleaning, almost ritualistic. The bottle positions weren't just neat, they were deliberately placed back in order after being used. And the scratches around the drain suggested someone had moved objects in a hurry, trying to hide something small, perhaps a tool or a vial. Then there was the security footage. Laura Grant, the friend, had entered without force. I dug into her background. Social media was sparse, but one detail stood out. She had recently completed a professional cleaning course and had experience in forensic-like decontamination, hospital-grade cleaning. She knew how to erase traces that most people couldn't see. I called her in for questioning. She sat across from me, calm, almost serene, as though she were certain she had done nothing wrong. "Laura," I started, "how well did you know Vanessa Clark?" "Closely," she said. "We were friends. She trusted me." "Why are you asking me this?" I placed the forensic photos in front of her. The streaks, the fingerprints, the scratches, every detail pointed to someone who knew exactly how to manipulate a scene. Her composure faltered for a split second. Then she said, I just wanted to help. She was always so messy, she asked me to clean. That's it." I leaned closer. "Did you bring anything with you that night? Any chemicals, tools, substances?" She paused. And that's when it happened, the tiny tell. A flicker of guilt in her eyes. She knew she was caught, even if she hadn't admitted it yet. The final piece came from a detail almost everyone overlooked: the residue under Vanessa's fingernails. Labs traced it to a rare disinfectant, one Laura had purchased days before the murder. The sedative was mixed with it to immobilize Vanessa while the scene was cleaned. It was meticulous, cold, calculated. Faced with the evidence, Laura broke down. She admitted it. She had wanted to teach Vanessa a lesson for confronting her about stealing from a joint account. One thing had led to another. When Vanessa resisted, she panicked, used the sedative, and staged the tub. She scrubbed every surface to perfection, leaving no trace of struggle. No one could have suspected murder until the tiniest forensic details were noticed. The bathtub, the emblem of cleanliness and perfection, had been transformed into a silent witness. It had recorded the chaos beneath the surface: faint scratches, misaligned soap residue, a single overlooked fingerprint on the faucet handle. I documented every piece of evidence, every trace Laura had overlooked, and handed it over to the authorities. Her confession was damning, but the forensic proof sealed the case. What had seemed like an impossible, pristine crime scene was cracked by observation, analysis, and patience. As I walked out of the apartment, the lights reflecting off the spotless tiles, I couldn't shake the thought that perfection often hides the most horrific secrets. Vanessa Clark's life had ended in a place designed for cleansing, yet the stains of human malice had left a permanent mark, if only someone knew where to look. Can someone truly erase a crime? Sometimes the cleanest surfaces hide the darkest truths. Watch the next case to see how tiny details expose deadly secrets.